We will be seeing part 20, and this will be the end of What If Deku was in the DC universe, so I really hope you guys enjoyed. So be sure to stick around until the end. Let's get started. Amongst the houses of the suburban area of Metropolis, a lone house stood in the middle of a stormy night. The house appeared like a gem amongst the dark clouds with its white picket fence and well-kept flower bed at the foot of the porch and the neat windows that made it look like a face looking at the street. A light came out from one of the windows, from within one of the rooms. The room was filled with superhero memorabilia. Pictures of heroes like Superman, Batman, Flash, and Green Lantern littered the walls like an homage to those amazing heroes. But there was a team that far overshadowed those heroes. There were news clippings, fan-made action figures, pictures, fan art, and even documented pieces of busted suits of the Titans. This was not just an homage to the Titans. This was a sanctuary in the name of those heroes. Sitting in front of a desk amidst her collection was a little chubby girl with short, dirty blonde hair. This was Casey Krinsky, the #1 fan of the Titans. She had followed them since day one and was always trying to get to the scene of the action. In a way, she was in love with them and what they represented. She let out a sigh as she finished her homework before picking up a framed picture of the hero team. "Oh, my beloved paradigms of justice, how I wished I could be with you." Casey fawned over the picture. "I bet you were all so perfect in and out of your hero suits. Not like me, boring and simple Casey Krinsky." Casey dropped her head on the desk, letting out a whimper. She wanted to be more like her heroes, just as perfect, and just as beautiful, and just as grandiose. Her phone began buzzing, catching her attention. She picked it up as it was her daily Planet Hero alert. Casey's eyes lit up as she hoped that her heroes would be center stage on the action. She quickly opened up her phone to see what was going on. The video transmission of Lois Lane appeared on her phone. "This just in. The electric villainess Livewire has taken to the Metropolis Radio and Communications Tower, and has been using it to power herself up. The fearless Titans have appeared to face off against her. Stay tuned." Casey ran down to her car and floored the accelerator. She had to be there more than anything. She didn't want to miss her heroes in action for 1 second. She drove quickly towards the radio and communications tower, arriving at the place where the heroic battle was taking place. At the top of the building, Deku, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, and the rest of the Titans were up facing Livewire. "Come on, Titans. Is this the best you've got?" Livewire asked, firing lightning bolts from her left hand as she held onto the tower with her right. Deku's danger sense allowed him to move quick enough to dodge the lightning that was being fired at him. "Get back, she's supercharged," Deku called his team, warning them of what their enemy was planning on doing. The other Titans were still keeping on the defensive, with Wonder Woman using her bracelets to block the attacks, Supergirl and Power Girl holding strong against the blasts, and both Green Lantern and Zatanna covering the rest of the team with a shield combined with will and magic. They needed to get through the lightning storm that Livewire was unleashing. "If she keeps this up, the power will go wild and be unleashed on the whole city," Bumblebee said. "And here I thought she was loud before," Cheetah added. "Any suggestions? We could separate her from the tower, cutting her off from her new source of energy," Katana said, pulling out her sword. "If we do that, we can take her down. Only if we can draw out her aim towards all of US," Green Lantern added. "I may be able to help that," Zatanna said, making her eyes turn bright violet. "Ekam senok fo dniwdna near fo snati." Zatanna clapped her hands together, making the rain and the wind around the Titans to focus. The blobs of rain and wind she created took the form of her and the rest of her team. "Ooh, I like what you did there," Batgirl said. "Good of you for getting our good sides," Supergirl pointed out. "Yeah, it's like looking in a mirror," Power Girl commented, checking out her double. "Honey, I've seen almost all of you naked. If I didn't get your looks right, then I must be blind," Zatanna commented quietly, before winking at Cheetah and Katana. Both the Catgirl and the Swordswoman blushed at the comment, as they hadn't been with the others like that yet. "Titans together," Wonder Woman called out, leading the charge with the rest of the Titans and the duplicates made by magic. Livewire was furious. She hated that the Titans always had an ace up their sleeves whenever they fought her. She fired blast after blast of electricity at the Titans. Every shot she fired was filled with more and more rage and power, warming the metal of the tower she was conducting energy from. But the Titans were slowly cutting down the distance until they were face to face with the electric villainess. "I won't be beaten so easily," Livewire called out in a desperate roar. "You sure about that?" Supergirl asked, using her heat vision to cut the piece of metal Livewire used. "Oh, come on, that's just cheating," Livewire snapped, looking at the melted piece of metal she had just been holding. "Lights out, villain," Wonder Woman said as the Titans landed a combined punch at the villainess that sent her flying down to the ground. Casey watched the situation unfold with utter wonder, almost like she was seeing everything with rose-tinted glasses. She was so enamored with the situation that she didn't notice the falling Livewire that was about to land on her. Just as she was about to be turned into a villain crash cushion, a violet aura and black whip caught Livewire. "Wow, that was close," Zatanna said as she and the other Titans came down from the top of the tower. "Are you all right? It's dangerous to get this close to a battle," Deku said as he held on to the knocked-out Livewire. Casey couldn't speak. She was like looking at the sight meant only for heaven. She was shaking, and had no idea what to do or say. Was she still amongst the living to see this sight, or had the villain fallen on her and killed her? Is she alright? Power Girl asked, waving a hand at the starry-eyed fan. Hi, Casey called out, scaring off the Titans a bit. My name is Casey and I'm your biggest fan. I've got all the news clippings of all your adventures, like that time you stopped the villain girls from blowing up a bridge, or the time you faced Catwoman in the museum, or that one time you faced off against that evil Kryptonian, or… we get it, Deku said, feeling a bit cornered. It is an honor to meet someone that has followed our actions so diligently, Wonder Woman said, feeling a bit put off herself. That's one way of putting it, Bumblebee whispered. That's how fans usually are, Cheetah commented. We should probably go now. We have to put the electric villain back in her cell in prison. Katana explained. After all, we can't leave her out in the rain. That's true. You should better get home safely, Casey, Green Lantern said as the cops started to arrive at the scene. Please, can I get a picture with you guys? It'll only be one, Casey begged. Most of the Titans weren't sure. A part of them wanted to see just what their #1 fan was like and shower in a little extra glory. But the others were a bit put off by how she was giving them a slightly crazed look. The rain running down the girl's mascara was giving her an even scarier look than what she had before. Oh, don't worry guys, a handshake or a picture won't kill anyone, Zatanna said, waving off the worries of the team. One picture, Casey, and then we'll have to go. Sounds like a good idea to me, Batgirl said, feeling like one picture couldn't hurt. Casey lit up at the words from her heroes. Before the other Titans could say or do anything to avoid it, Casey enveloped Zatanna and Batgirl in a hug before taking a selfie with her. But as Casey's hand touched Zatanna's and Batgirl's arms, a green aura briefly glowed on her hand. The glow caused the two Titans to feel drained of what they could do. Zatanna started to feel weak. Her legs were like wet noodles and her usual violet glow subsided. As soon as Casey released the sorceress of the hero team, she was caught by Deku. Batgirl felt like she had just run 10 marathons with an empty stomach. Her usual peppiness was being turned down to that of a sleeping puppy dog. She wanted to crawl into her bed and sleep for at least a week. Once she was also released from Casey's grip, she fell to her knees, only to be caught by Cheetah. Are you all right, Zatanna? Deku asked. You girls don't look so hot. Cheetah added. Maybe we should go back to the base, Wonder Woman suggested. Yeah, I could go for a nap, Zatanna replied. Me too, Batgirl added weakly. Bye, Casey, Supergirl said as the Titans left the scene while Deku carried Zatanna and Cheetah gave Batgirl a lift. Casey stood in awe as she saw her heroes fly off. She looked at her phone and saw the picture. She could not believe her eyes at the sight before her. Yes. I wish all the Titans were in this picture. Yahoo! Casey screamed in happiness, jumping high in the air like an acrobatic master. Casey spun in the air 3 times over before landing on her feet with great skill. She was surprised at what she had done. She had never even been able to make a backflip, let alone 3 in the air. Her hands started to glow a violet light, much like the magic she saw Zatanna use. Back at the secret base of the Titans underneath Sweet Justice, the Titans got back after their mission, and quickly placed both Zatanna and Batgirl on the couch. I'm so tired, Batgirl groaned. I don't think I even have the strength to check if I look good, Zatanna added with as much lack of energy as her friend. Are you sure you're well? Katana asked. Yeah, you two are usually the most energetic of the whole team, Bumblebee added. Supergirl and Power Girl then sneezed. Maybe they caught whatever me and Galatea caught, Supergirl suggested, sniffing with her clogged nose. What kind of villain makes heroes wearing tights go out and fight them in the middle of a storm? Achoo! Power Girl sneezed out, sending a gust of wind across the room. Sorry. Bless you be both, Deku said. I'll whip up some special chicken soup. My mom always made it for me when I got sick. Green Lantern offered. At this moment you could feed me raw squid and I wouldn't notice, Batgirl whimpered. Zatanna waved her hand, hoping to get some ice through magic and cool herself. But nothing happened. She waved her hand again, but again nothing happened. She opened one of her eyes, sighing in frustration. Come on, this is baby stuff, Zatanna muttered, waving her hand as though she was trying to swat a fly. Here, let me Z. Even in my tired state I can cartwheel and backflip to the fridge and be back in less than 5 seconds, Batgirl said, standing in a T-form. However, as soon as she leaned back she hit the floor. Ow! Batgirl yelped. Barbara, are you all right? Wonder Woman asked, helping the redhead up. I don't understand. I can do that sort of acrobatic backflip in my sleep, but it's like I've lost all my coordination and acrobatic skills, Barbara yelled in terror. That's not the only bad thing. I can't feel my magic, Zatanna said in terror. What? Everyone asked in shock. Green Lantern started scanning both Zatanna and Batgirl with her ring. She was trying to find the reason for her two friends losing their powers and skills. It had taken a while, but they had managed to calm them both down enough to run the scans in search of answers. According to my readings, Z is no longer channeling magic, nor Barbara has the coordination she once had, Green Lantern said, looking at the results of her ring scan. It's as though they had both been drained of their powers. Oh, this is awful. What are we going to do? Z asked in a panic. How could this have happened? Maybe this is like a magic cold or something? Bumblebee suggested. That would be a good option, if my skills hadn't been taken away as well, Barbara replied, trying to do a single cartwheel, but she fell on her face once more. I don't think this is normal. Her words struck a chord with the rest of the Titans. This had not been something normal to happen to their two friends. The heroes had to find out what was the source of this plight and find a way to reverse it. Do either of you remember anything out of the ordinary after the fight? Deku asked. Apart from kicking Major Bad Girl ass, Supergirl sneezed. Yeah, out of the ordinary for us might be different than everyone else's definition of it. Power Girl added. Livewire can't be responsible for this. Her powers appear to be solely electric in their nature, not magical. Katana mentioned. So even if she did find a way to drain powers, she would have targeted all of us, not just Zatanna and Batgirl. If it wasn't her, then it must have been someone else. Titans, we must return to the scene of the crime, Wonder Woman instructed. We can stay here, right? Z asked, feeling like she had been tarred and feathered. Someone should stay here and keep an eye on these two, just to see if their condition gets worse. Cheetah said, pointing out that the two girls look pretty bad. I agree with Cheetah. Katana, can you stay and look out for them? Deku asked the young samurai. I shall protect them with my last breath, Katana replied, drawing out Soul Taker. I pity anyone foolish enough to strike at my friends while I am here. The intensity and tone of Katana's voice made the two sick Titans flinch in fear. They wanted to go with their friends if it meant staying clear of the swordswoman version of taking care of. They mouthed to them to stay or to take them with them, but sadly the other Titans were already gone. Z and Barbara got shocked faces at how the girls and Deku left them with Katana. All right, I shall prepare you to a traditional feast to help you regain your strength, Katana said, heading to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Casey was back at home, testing her new abilities. She was making her books float in a circle above her head before enchanting a pair of brooms to sweep and clean her room as she balanced herself on top of a stack of chairs. She felt at the top of the world. Her body knew exactly what to do with every single one of her movements. This is so cool, Casey cheered, jumping down to the floor with the grace of a ballerina finishing her recital. This is a dream come true. I can move like Batgirl and I've got magic like Zatanna. Could this get any better? Sadly, Casey's words to the universe were met with a shattering loud knock. Casey, get out of this room this instant, young lady. Casey lost focus, causing her books and stacked chairs and moving brooms to fall down around her with one book hitting her head. She winced as the door to her room opened up. At the threshold of Casey's door stood an older woman with long brown hair and a sour expression on her face. She was Casey's mother. She looked at the mess that was her daughter's room, and then at her. You took the car without telling me? In the middle of a storm? I just had it cleaned. She snapped. I'm sorry, Mom. There was a fight by the tower and the Titans were there. And, Casey began. I don't want to hear it. I expect you to behave and do your chores without bothering me. Casey's mom said. Clean yourself up and behave like a normal child, not a girl with nonsense on the head. Maybe that way you'll stop getting on my nerves. The Titans? I don't know what's your deal with those freaks, but you've wasted enough of my money on their junk, she snapped, cutting off her daughter's excuse. Why can't you be a normal girl and obsess over boys or drugs or something else? You'll clean the car for taking it without permission and leaving it out in the rain. And clean your room, it's a mess. Casey's mom slammed the door shut, leaving her daughter by herself again. Casey's hands balled up into fists in rage. She wanted to yell at her mother and snap back at her. Her hands began to glow and all the stuff that was on the floor began to float. Casey's eyes glowed green like cursed emeralds as she fumed over her dislike for the words of her mother. How I wished she would just buzz off. If only I was good enough to stand up to her, Casey cursed, causing all her hero memorabilia to spin around her, enveloped by the magic she now possessed. Casey's eyes landed on the first news clipping that she had ever gotten on the Titans. I bet they don't have to put up with people like Mom. They can stand up to anyone because they are so perfect. Casey said, grabbing the clipping. I wish I could be as perfect as all of them. Then I could. Maybe I can. Casey's mind grew dark with ideas on how to become perfect. Perfect enough to not skulk around her own house, and to become adored at school like all girls desired. All she had to do was talk to the Titans like before. Back with Deku, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Power Girl, Bumblebee, Cheetah, and Green Lantern, they were looking around the area where they had defeated Livewire. But they were only finding blown leaves, some trash cans, and an old lottery ticket with a losing number. Well, there's nothing here, Green Lantern said, using her ring to look at the ground with a magnifying glass. There are too many smells but nothing strange or weird, Cheetah said before recoiling. Bleh, someone had one too many beans for dinner. I think I've just gone nose blind. Lucky for you, Supergirl countered, sniffing. Better not smell than having a stuffy nose, Power Girl added, wiping the snot from her nose. Supergirl then sneezed, knocking both Cheetah and Green Lantern on their butts. Sorry, Supergirl sniffed. Bless you, Bumblebee said. Deku, do you have any idea what could have been what took our comrades' powers? Wonder Woman asked. Deku started thinking about it on the way to the crime scene. The possibility that someone had struck from far away to steal the powers of both Zatanna and Batgirl was not a viable one in the middle of a storm. If it was a weapon, then the two girls would have gotten markings or a wound that would show that they had gotten hit, but they didn't have any of that. So that left the chance that someone got in close and used something on them without anyone noticing. Deku then proceeded to think if anyone got close enough to steal their powers and abilities. Just then an explosion caught the attention of the Titans. They turned to see a large black cloud coming from a couple of blocks away. "What was that?" Bumblebee asked. "I don't know, but we need to go see what is the cause of it." "Titans, together," Wonder Woman said, leading the rest of the Titans towards the explosion. The Titans arrived at the scene. They saw a bunch of cars piled on top of each other, covered in flames and smoke like the chocolate on a large sundae. They looked around for any signs of the criminal or the reason the accident took place, but the sight of people inside the cars took priority. "We need to get those people out of there," Wonder Woman said. "Supergirl, Power Girl, see if you can take care of the fire and the smoke with your ice breaths," Deku instructed. "You got it, Greenie," Supergirl replied, taking to the skies with Power Girl. "We may have stuffy noses, but we will take care of this in a sec," Power Girl added. "We shall get the people out of the cars as fast as we can in the meantime," Wonder Woman said. "Let's go," Green Lantern said as they went to the cars. Supergirl and Power Girl flew up to the sky and blew at the flames with their ice breath. The flames were extinguished by their breath. The cars and the people inside them were now safe from all the flames and the smoke that engulfed them. The two Kryptonians went to the first cars, picking them up and putting them the right way up. This was something that was way too easy for the two blondes, but as soon as one of the cars opened up, something happened. As the other Titans got the people out of the burning cars, people swarmed and walked away from the area. But not everyone did that. Two hands grabbed hold of the two Kryptonians, getting a good grip on them. Supergirl and Power Girl started to feel drained. They were already feeling down in the dumps due to their cold, but now all they wanted to do was crawl into their beds and sleep for a week. The hands that grabbed hold of them released their grasp before diving back into the crowd. They held themselves up by sheer strength of will as they looked around for the source of what had taken their energy. "What was?" Supergirl began. "Achoo, I don't know," Power Girl replied. The rest of the Titans were unaware of this as they stuck to their task. They got everyone out as fast as they could. Pulling open doors and helping people down from their torn vehicles was all they could see for the time being. Deku pulled a man out of his car, helping him to the ground. "Are you all right, sir?" Deku asked. "I am, thank you," the man replied, coughing from the smoke. "How did this happen?" "The cars looked like they were stacked up instead of crashed," Deku asked. "I don't know. One moment I was driving like nothing was wrong with the world, and the next the cars were piled on like by magic." Deku's eyes went wide at the words from the civilian. That was how the cars had been stacked and set on fire. Someone had staged this for the Titans to arrive and save lives. This meant that the one responsible for the attack was in the crowd. His eyes landed on both Supergirl and Power Girl. He noticed how they weren't flying and that they were looking like they were about to fall face first. He used his full cowling to rush to their side, catching them before they fell. "Supergirl, Power Girl, are you both all right?" Deku asked, helping them stay up. "Apart from our cold, I can't fly anymore," Supergirl replied. "This is so not our D-Day," Power Girl added. Deku reached for his communicator, hoping that he still had time to warn his team. "Girls, the one who stole the powers of both Zatanna and Batgirl is in the crowd. They've set this up and have already taken the powers of both Supergirl and Power Girl," Deku called through the communicator. However, just as his words went through the communicator, the evil mastermind behind this trap was at work. "What?" Green Lantern asked before a hand grabbed hold of her own. Green Lantern started to feel dizzy. Her vision was getting blurry, only giving her fuzzy look at who was grabbing her. She couldn't feel the power of her ring, as though her connection was getting cut off. She felt the hand release her as she tried to find her balance once more. Bumblebee looked around for any other people that needed her help, only to be caught in her small form by a purple aura. "This is," Bumblebee began before being caught by two hands. The small hero struggled against the hold of her captor, but the magic and the super strength that held her down were too much for her. She started to feel without any energy. She couldn't tell what her suit was telling her. They were all just blinking lights to her as she grew back to her original size. Wonder Woman and Cheetah heard Deku's warning, and were now back to back, trying to spot their attacker. "You see anything, Cheetah?" Wonder Woman asked. "No, the rain is making it very hard to get a good sniff on who's attacking us," Cheetah replied, keeping her eyes sharp for any movement. Their trained ears twitched at the sound of someone buzzing around them at great speeds. They tried to follow it, but whoever was cornering them was charged with the speed of two Kryptonians and the enhanced power of magic from a Homo Magi. Their eyes snapped from side to side, keeping their guards up. In the blink of an eye, a green will construct struck Cheetah, sending her away from Wonder Woman. "Cheetah!" Wonder Woman called out. She reached for her lasso to pull her to safety, but it was caught by a hand. Wonder Woman was then pulled towards the hand that had caught her lasso. She tried to dig her heels to stop her pull, but then she was met with two glowing red eyes. She held up her bracelets in a crossguard form, blocking that full force of the attack. Wonder Woman was pushed back by the power of the heat vision. The roar of a wild beast made the attacker turn her sights back at Cheetah just as she brought down her claws at her. Her enemy and attacker barely managed to dodge the attack, which allowed only a few hairs to be cut. But Cheetah continued once more with her attack. She swiped at her enemy, using her speed to keep up with her. She grabbed hold of her arm, jumping over her enemy, landing a double kick on the attacker's back. Wonder Woman joined the fight, tackling their attacker with her shield. Her attack sent their enemy crashing to the edge of a nearby building. "Nice save, Wonder Woman," Cheetah said. "We need to keep her cornered until Deku and the rest arrive. She has used the powers of Supergirl, Power Girl, and Green Lantern so far. We need to be careful and approach with caution," Wonder Woman pointed out. "You go left and I go right," Cheetah commented. "Agreed," Wonder Woman said as the attacker got off from the building. "Why are you attacking us?" The figure just looked at the two heroes. Only the two glowing green eyes looked at them from the darkness. She just stared at the two heroes. She giggled and chuckled as though she was playing a game of cat and mouse. It was a dangerous feeling when the cornered opponent was acting as though they were in control of the situation. The moment the heroes noticed this, the enemy spoke for what felt like a short lifetime. "To be perfect, just like you," the owner of the eyes replied. Wonder Woman's eyes widened at the realization of what she meant. "Cheetah, get back," Wonder Woman said as their enemy shrunk down to the size of a small insect. The green light flew at the two heroes, circling around them with great speed and strength. The two heroes tried swatting it away with the best of their abilities, but their enemy was far too fast for them. They got back to back once more, hoping to get a better place to fight back. But every swipe and punch thrown by the two heroes were unable to land on their target. Wonder Woman's training kept her alert along with Cheetah's enhanced senses, but with an opponent the size of a tiny bumblebee and with the speed of two Kryptonians was making it very hard. "Woes tawa yet some arised," a tiny voice chanted. A flash of violet light temporarily blinded the two heroes, forcing them to close their eyes. They slowly opened their eyes only to find that the green light had disappeared and Deku stood before them. "Deku, beware, the villain is nearby," Wonder Woman said, warning her friend. "Yeah, the little bugger is still around," Cheetah added. "I think that the enemy has fled. Katana is taking care of the others, so we have a minute for ourselves," Deku said, getting on one knee. "Darling, what are you doing?" Cheetah asked, getting a blush on her face. "Are you injured? Why are you kneeling?" Wonder Woman asked, feeling her heart flutter. Deku pulled out 2 boxes. "Ever since I met our children, I've been thinking. We are meant for each other," Deku said, opening the 2 small boxes, revealing 2 rings, both with small emeralds on them. Wonder Woman and Cheetah's faces lit up like they had been standing out in the sun. Their eyes turned into hearts as they spotted the rings and what they meant. Wonder Woman didn't know what it meant, but she knew that the ring meant something very important that led to the bottom of her heart. Cheetah couldn't find the words to reply. Her parents had told her that someone would ask for her hand eventually, but the one asking for it was the man she loved more than anything. They were entranced by the sight. They lunged at Deku's hands, grabbing hold of them in the rings. "Yes, we do," both Wonder Woman and Cheetah said at the same time, holding onto Deku's hands. But that was when the illusion was broken. The hands of their beloved turned to those of their attacker. Wonder Woman and Cheetah were shocked and tried to pry their hands off, but the strength of the mysterious enemy was too strong. Their strength was fleeting, and with that their powers as well. Wonder Woman felt like the weight of her own armor was going to crush her, and that she could barely make a single step. Cheetah's fur began to pull in, showing parts of her tanned skin as she fell to her knees. After a minute of this, their enemy finally spoke out. "Finally, I am perfect like you all," Casey said as the power inside her began to bubble and come out to the surface. "Wonder Woman, Cheetah," Deku called out, coming in to save his friends. Deku landed between his friends and Casey. He picked them up and jumped away as the fan-turned-villain began to transform. Casey grew in height as her body transformed into an amalgamation of all the female titans. Her body became voluptuous and muscular like a mixture of an Amazonian warrior and a prime example of Kryptonian might. A tail sprung out from her back and sharp claws on her fingers. Her short, dirty blonde hair became long, luscious, and caramel in color with 2 streaks of green on either sides of her new long mane of hair, with 2 black antennas sprouting from the top of her forehead and 2 violet bat ears poking out. Her skin became flawless and without blemishes. Her clothes transformed along with her body. She now wore a skin-tight blue suit with bumblebee armored shoes, the neckpiece of Zatanna's, Wonder Woman's bracelets and shoulder protectors, the Batgirl symbol with the colors of Supergirl's colors with a boob window above it. Her cape hung the same way that Power Girl's hung, a visor laid on her face, and all was sealed with a smile of a goddess. "Yes, I am perfect now. I will now become the most respected and adored being in this world," Casey said, admiring her new body. "I feel like I could crush skulls with my fingertips and make anything I want with a thought." Casey felt like she could do anything. She picked up a mailbox and easily crushed it with her hand, tearing the metal like it was a wet tissue. She then created a diamond out of a will construct before it multiplied itself with a violet aura surrounding it. She shrunk down before firing a blast of heat vision at the sky. She cackled like a mad witch before turning her sights back to the city. "I think it's time for dear old mom to see what I can really do," Casey said, breaking the sonic barrier on her way to her home. Deku looked up as he helped Wonder Woman, Cheetah and the others to someplace safe. He had called Katana and gotten her to come help him pick up the girls. Just hang on a little longer girls, Katana will be here in just a second, Deku said, carrying Wonder Woman, Cheetah, Supergirl, Power Girl on his back while using Black Whip to hold up Green Lantern and Green Lantern. Izuku, when is the honeymoon? Cheetah asked. What honeymoon? Supergirl asked. Yes, and what does the ring mean for the moon of honey? Wonder Woman asked. What? Deku asked, blushing. Deku didn't know what they were talking about, but something told him that they were not going to stop talking about it. He could only imagine what they had seen under the influence of Casey's magic. In a way, he felt that the conversation was a long time coming, but now wasn't the time. He spotted Katana coming in with Green Lantern's van. Deku, what happened? Katana asked. Casey stole everyone's powers. I need to go after her and stop her from doing something very bad, Deku said as he helped the girls into the van. Don't worry, I'll be back. Deku placed the last girl into the van before taking off after Casey. Take care of yourself, Deku. Katana called out. What were you two talking about? Bumblebee asked, getting the attention of the rest of the girls. Something about rings and honeymoons. What? Katana asked. Deku jumped from rooftop to rooftop in search of the vicious amalgamation of most of his team. His mind was spewing theory after theory on how her abilities worked and how he could reverse them to save his girlfriends and friends. He had managed to catch some of the things she was saying when her powers manifested completely and could connect with the desire to be perfect. In a twisted way, he understood what she was going through and how to talk to her. Deku then caught sight of the woman who was flying like she was having the time of her life. He didn't engage her, as he knew that without a plan he would get overpowered and defeated just like his team. He hung back and waited for the opening that he needed to defeat her, but then he noticed something about her. Casey was going at top speeds towards a house, her house. She landed in front of it, creating a deep, perfectly shaped circular crater and a loud boom. She glared at the door, using her X-ray vision to see her mother running to the door. An evil smile crossed Casey's face as she played what her mother would say at that moment. The door swung open with Casey's mother stomping out of her house, her face fuming with rage at the sight of the giant woman with all the powers of the female titans. What the freaking hell, you freak, she screamed. You just destroyed the front of my house. I don't care what you think you're doing, but it stops now. I will have you pay for my lawn. Every damn penny you have will go to pay for the hole you just made. I will own that stupid. Shut up, Mom, Casey snapped so loudly that the windows of all nearby houses shattered. Deku covered his ears from how loud she screamed. If he had been any closer, he figured his ears would be bleeding. He looked up over the roof where he was hiding to see the situation unfold. See, Casey, she stuttered. What happened to you? You like it? I decided to get my hands on what I wanted for so long. I have become perfect. The most amazing woman in the world, just like you wanted. Casey explained with a slightly disturbed smile on her face, which caused the older woman to fall back in fear of her own daughter. Aren't you happy? I am all you've ever wanted and more, but you know what I've learned from all this? That I can do anything I want. Casey's mother crawled away from Casey. Her face was one of fear and concern. She wanted her daughter to succeed and become better, but now she saw that she had taken her words far beyond what she expected. She was proud that the little girl finally stood up to her, but this was not what she was expecting. She reached out for the door, hoping that she had enough speed in her step to get to the phone and call the police before her daughter did something else. She had to stall. Really? That's great. Does that mean that you will clean your room, get out more, try for the cheerleading squad, go out and date boys or girls? Casey's mom asked as she picked herself up with the help of the door. Casey didn't reply right away. She just stared at her mother with a crazed look. Hearing her mother's pleas and suggestions was not making her change her mind. She wanted to do whatever she wanted, but only one thing appeared at the top of her list. Her eyes started to glow red as she looked down at her mother. You want to know what I want to do, Mom? Casey asked. Casey's mom stuttered in terror. I don't ever want to see or hear you, ever again. Casey screamed as her eyes burned crimson red like the depths of hell. Deku saw this and his eyes widened in shock. There was no time to look for an opening. He needed to get there now or else the woman would be dead, and Casey would have crossed a line there was no coming back from. He activated full cowling far beyond what he could withstand, hitting 50% without realizing. He rushed across the street past Casey as she unleashed a burning blast of heat vision aimed directly at her mother, and managed to tackle the mother out of the way of the burning glare. He felt the heat of the attack as it passed over his head. What? Casey snapped as she missed her intended target. Before she could fire another attack, Deku used his speed and strength to take the woman out of the room. He managed to take her to the kitchen where the back door was. He looked over his shoulder as he opened the door for her to leave. Get out of here, it isn't safe, Deku whispered, hoping to avoid detection from the overpowered Casey. Casey's mom ran out the door, slamming the door shut behind her without thinking. Deku's danger sense warned him of something coming towards him. He ducked under the stove as Casey smashed through until she reached the kitchen. He got up with his full cowling flaring up and the green electric aura around him crackling. Deku, what are you doing? Casey snapped. I won't let you kill anyone, Casey. No matter what your mother did, you need to stop what you're doing. Deku pleaded while holding up his guard. You need to return the powers you've stolen. They aren't yours to do as you please. I finally am perfect, and all because of these powers. I will not give them back. Casey roared, shooting herself forward, reeling back her right arm to crush Deku's skull. Deku ducked with the aid of his danger sense. He rolled out of the way as Casey's punch made a large hole in the wall, sending splinters and pieces flying. He turned to the front door, pulling Casey with Black Whip. He needed to move into a strike, but he didn't want to destroy the house if he could avoid it. Using his super strength of One for All in combination of Black Whip, he flung Casey out of the house through the same hole she had made while coming in. Casey bounced on the street, getting angry that she was being tossed around by one of her favorite heroes just like before. She looked up to see Deku land before her, looking at her through his mask. Using the powers of others to make people pay isn't what heroes do. There is no such thing as perfection. Deku called back. You lie, Casey snapped as her eyes turned feral. You and the other Titans are perfect paragons of justice and all that people can become, and I am nothing, she shouted, firing a blast of willpower and magic at Deku. Deku dodged the blast as it took part of his costume's arm. He hissed as the burning sensation of the blast spread through his arm. He turned his sights back to Casey before charging at her once more. One for all Air Force St. Louis smash, Deku called out, sending a powerful blast of focused air with one of his kicks. The blast of air struck Casey, sending her back. She got back up with an angered look on her face. She looked for her opponent, but she didn't see him. She then sensed something coming towards her. Casey turned her face right as a punch came at her side, hitting her on the ribs. One for all Fajin Detroit smash, Deku called out, as the strength of his punch increased and was amplified by his new quirk. Deku's punch sent Casey back, flying in a folded form. He flinched as he felt needles pinching his whole arm. He couldn't keep this up for long. His new quirk was taking a lot out of him, and he needed to put an end to the fight before Casey did something to put him out of the fight. Casey stopped herself in midair, growling in rage. She fired a blast of heat vision at Deku with all her far-reaching rage. She burnt through the street towards the male Titan, forcing him to run away from the heat vision. She continued her pursuit, blinded by rage and a desire to become unopposed in her search for perfection. Deku looked over his shoulder. He needed to calm Casey down or else she would burn down the whole neighborhood in order to get to him. Casey, stop this, we can talk about this, Deku called out, using his full cowling to dodge the heat vision. There's nothing to talk about. I wanted to be loved like all of you and now I will. All I must do is end you. Casey called out in rage. You can't be loved until you love yourself, Deku replied, jumping out of the way of an incoming blast. Casey stopped her attacks for a brief moment. The words that she had heard were amplified by her super hearing. She shook her head, feeling the words bouncing around in her head. Her hands pressed against her ears to muffle the voice of the hero. Shut it, no one ever even looked at me, Casey snapped, her eyes shut as she tried to regain her composure. But now everyone will look at me and see what I can truly be. But this isn't the real you. You've transformed yourself into an amalgamation of my friends and teammates, Deku countered. This isn't you. People will never accept what you've done as something good. You need to give the powers back to my friends before you do something drastic. Casey shook her head, trying to keep all the words that Deku was sending her way out of her mind. But it wasn't just his words. Her ears were picking up on more and more people talking. Cars honking, dogs barking, machines moving, birds tweeting, planes taking off and more. She was starting to get a sensory overload. She had been able to keep things quiet, but now it was starting to feel too much for her. She let out a cry of rage out of her mouth. Deku saw this as his chance. If he could make Casey become overexerted by all the power she was using, then he'd be able to defeat her. He charged at her, spreading his arms as wide as he could while channeling his full cowling. He brought both of his hands together, creating a small thunderous clap next to Casey's ears. Full cowling. Thunderclap, Deku called out, followed by Casey's scream. Casey let out a pained scream, feeling her brain was about to burst from all the noise. She narrowed her eyes at Deku, gritting her teeth like she was about to turn her own teeth into dust. She was so angry that she started flailing like a wild beast, throwing punches left and right. However, Deku was able to dodge all the attacks by the skin of his teeth, getting scratches and bruises from the attacks. He jumped back, getting distance between the mashed-up woman and the Titan. He prepared to unleash another Delaware smash, but Casey cut the distance between them with ease. Casey unleashed a magic-empowered hammer construct, hitting Deku square in the chest. Deku was blown back as the air was knocked out of him. He flew through the air with pain on his chest and no way of stopping himself. He looked around for anything that he could grab hold of or land. He spotted the radio and communications tower. Deku fired Black Whip at it, wrapping the black tendril around the tower. His arms strained against the pull. He stifled a cry as he used his feet to create a blast of air to stop himself. He could hear the metal creaking as it tried to stop his uncontrolled flight. His body went limp as he was able to stop his unwarranted flight. Deku let out a sigh of relief, but his relief was short-lived. Casey came in like a rocket, and a look that said that she only had murder in her mind. She tackled Deku off the air, pulling him along until they were flying over the Metropolis pier. Deku spotted the House of Mirrors below them, triggering an idea. He freed himself from her hold, flipping over her with his float quirk. He grabbed hold of her leg, flinging her into the House of Mirrors. He went after her with an idea and a plan coming together in his mind. He landed in the House of Mirrors, right across from where Casey had crashed. Casey chanted under her breath a small spell, pulling the rubble off of her. "I am done being made a joke by you, Deku," Casey snapped. Deku felt something coming from his body. He looked down to see smoke coming from his body. It was a new quirk, a thick screen of smoke. He smiled under his mask before looking at Casey with adamant determination. "I didn't make you do anything. You chose to take my friend's powers and you chose to use them to attack people." Deku snapped back, glaring a look that would send shivers down the spine of any villain. "You were the one that turned herself into a joke." Casey fired a blast of heat vision. But her attack didn't hit Deku. Deku was engulfed in a thick smokescreen, hiding his presence from Casey. The heat vision blasted through the smokescreen, but missed the hero. Casey growled in rage as the strain was becoming too much for her to handle. Her ears caught the sound of feet running deeper into the House of Mirrors. She took after it, using the speed of Cheetah and the agility of Wonder Woman. She found herself surrounded by reflections of herself and Deku. "You're not taking this from me," Casey said. "You know that this isn't yours to keep," Deku replied. Casey rushed to punch Deku, but only got a handful of glass. "Stop this and undo what you did. This doesn't need to escalate any further," Deku said from behind Casey, causing her to snap her head back, firing a blast from her stingers only for it to backfire. The room started to be filled with more of Deku's new quirk smokescreen, making the sight of anyone inside all the more difficult. Casey started going berserk, punching every mirror she could lay her eyes on. She wanted to hit Deku so hard his head blew up like a watermelon, but all she was met was smoke and mirrors. She broke every single mirror she could find, becoming angrier with every punch that shattered her own visage. She was panting in rage. Her hair was a mess and her eyes only showed a crazed look. "It's over, Casey," Deku said, causing Casey's eyes to light up with rage. She turned around, blinded with rage. She fired at Deku as he was partly coated with the smokescreen. Deku remained still as the blast came towards him. Sweat came down the back of his neck. He needed to time this right. He waited until he could no longer see Casey's body. He then sprung out of the way of the blast, only getting some burnt marks on his arm and back. The overpowered heat vision struck the mirror that Deku was standing in front of. The attack was reflected on the mirror, going back to Casey. She was struck by the attack, causing her to release all the powers that she had absorbed. Her body was engulfed in a green crystal light as the energy came out of her. The energy she had absorbed turned into pillars of different colors for each of the Titans. The lights searched for their respective partners, returning their powers once more. The female Titans were struck by their respective lights, getting their energy back. With their powers and abilities restored, they all went after Deku to help him. Deku watched as a knocked-out Casey was taken by the police. He watched from above the House of Mirrors, hoping that Casey would get the help she needed. "Deku," a voice called. The green-clad hero turned to see the female members of the Titans coming up behind him. "It seems we've missed the whole mess," Zatanna said. "Are you all right?" Katana asked. "Yeah, let's go back to the base. I think I'll need some bandages," Deku replied, giving the girls a beaten-up smile. The hero team returned to their hidden base of operations. They had switched back to their secret identities and were now trying to unwind. Diana and Jessica were putting some bandages on Izuku while everyone else was preparing a late-night snack. "I gotta say, today was such a crazy day," Barbara pointed out. "We gotta keep on our toes. If villains are going to hit wherever they might come from, we need to step up," Tatsu said. "Agreed, I just wish we could end this day on a high note," Barbie said, looking at Izuku with a blush. The memory of him proposing to her was still fresh on her mind and she hoped that it would actually happen one day. Just then, Kara and Galatea started to take in air, like they were loading up for the mother of all sneezes. Then it happened like lightning. The two Kryptonians let out the mother of all sneezes. The powerful gusts of snot and air struck Barbie and Tatsu, blowing off their clothes and underwear. The two girls were as naked as the days they were born for all their teammates to see. They quickly covered themselves out of pure instinct as deep red blushes covered their faces. "Nice bodies, girls," Diana commented, giving them a thumbs up. "That sounds like a good way to finish this chapter," Barbara added. As the people throughout the city worked tirelessly through the week, the heroes of Metropolis did as well. The life of a young hero going through schoolwork, responsibilities, and the ever-growing dread of a social life was not an easy one. But regardless of their work or homework they had to endure, both normal civilians and heroes alike looked forward to the weekend and the breaks that it offered. In the house of Barbie and Minerva, all the female members of the Titans had gathered up to have one final study day before chilling out for Saturday and then dreading the cat on Monday. However, as they read book after book and went through the practice cat tests, there was one thought that caught up with the female Titans. Hey, have you guys noticed that Diana and Barbie have been acting like super weird next to Izuku? Kara asked in a whisper. Yes indeed. Ever since their battle with Casey they've been acting like maidens in love, Tatsu replied. It might have had something to do with how Casey tricked them, or beat them. Jessica whispered back. But what could possibly make them act like that? Haven't we all already? You know, Karen mentioned. More than once if memory serves, dear. Z replied with a saucy smile on her face, which caused everyone to get a blush on their faces. But still, we gotta ask them or else we'll be stuck running the question in circles. Galatea said, Yo Diana and Barbie emerged from a large pile of books they had buried themselves in. They looked a little unfocused and with messy hair and makeup as though they had just now woken up. The usual pictures of beauty and princess expressions had messy bedheads, smudged makeup and crooked smiles. Yes? Barbie asked. Is there a problem, friends? Diana asked. You could say that, Galatea whispered, getting an elbow from Tatsu. What Galatea meant to say was, we've noticed you've both been acting a little strange ever since your battle with Casey. Is everything all right? Usually you can bounce back from any battle like a rabbit on a marathon. Barbara explained. The words that Barbara had used made both Diana and Barbie turn into blushing messes. Their minds had conjured up the image of Izuku dropping down on one knee and offering them a ring for their hand in marriage. Those words and memories were then followed by images of them all in wedding dresses, with Eri being the flower girl in their happiest day, followed by a picture of them all with their respective children in their arms. That daydream had haunted the two girls during their waking and sleeping hours, making them a mess whenever Izuku got even close to being on one knee or asking them something. And don't try to weasel your way out of this, we know something happened, Z said, standing on the table before the two girls. So spill. We are your friends and we want to know if everything is alright, Jessica began. Izuku proposed to us, Barbie blurted out. Kale, he's okay? Jessica asked. Casey used a spell to make us see what we desired most, and we both saw Izuku kneeling on one knee before us before showing us a ring for each. Diana explained. I do not know what came over me. As soon as I saw it and heard his words, I jumped after the ring as though it could save my home and my people. Is this some form of sickness? The other girls were quiet as they registered what their friends had just told them. They had also gotten thoughts since meeting their future children and how they would eventually become the wives of Izuku. But hearing how their friends were thinking about it more and more did make them consider that they had to discuss this with the source of their baby mama futures. We need to talk to Izuku about this, Kara said. I mean, I don't know about you, but I like the future those kids came from. But I don't want to force you girls. Yeah, all in or all out, Galatea added. For that we need to speak to Izuku, Tatsu said. He should be with Mirio and Eri at the hospital. I'll call him to meet us here. Z said, pulling out her phone. And afterwards we'll need something super relaxing to calm ourselves down. I think I've got an idea, Barbara said, looking at the pool. The girls looked at the pool that Barbara was suggesting as a sneaky smile appeared on her face. Oh, I think that will do nicely, Barbie said. I just hope we have bathing suits. Tatsu pointed out. What are these bathing suits you're all talking about? Diana asked. Do you not go clothless when you take a bath? Oh, you'll see, darling. Z said as she dialed Izuku's number. Izuku had gone with Mirio to visit Eri, who was starting to get a lot better. He was happy to see the little unicorn girl feeling better and being more open to him and Mirio. She had asked where her big sisters were and if they could visit her. He did explain to her that once they managed to finish their studies, they would be waiting outside the door for visiting hours. Mirio pulled Izuku to the side once their visiting time had finished. Listen, Izuku, I spoke to Sir Night-Eye, and he said that he can get Eri back to Japan, and she can stay with a trusted hero friend of his. Mirio. I figured that I had to tell you this before the girls found out. I'm sure they'll understand, and right afterwards they'll all get passports and tickets to go visit her every chance they have. Izuku commented. Mirio chuckled as it was no secret that the girls had dubbed themselves Eri's big sisters and that they would murder anyone that even looked at Eri the wrong way. Still, they have been a good influence on Eri. I will be sad to say goodbye to Tatsu, but I know she's in good hands, Mirio said. I will personally drop by as much as possible to check up on her and make sure she is all right. I'm sure that will put their minds at ease, Izuku replied, just as his phone began to vibrate. Oh sorry, Z is calling. Maybe their big sister sense told them that they needed to talk to you? Mirio joked. Izuku smiled a sheepish smile. He wouldn't be surprised if that were the case of the call. He answered the phone and placed it next to his ear. Hello? Izuku asked. Izuku darling, we have something that we need to discuss with you. It is rather urgent, Z said from the other side of the phone call. Izuku stiffened up a bit, despite knowing that her tone was nowhere near as serious as it could have been. He had heard the girls angry before, but this was the first time he felt greater implications behind their words. Izuku tried to get back on track and get more information out of Z before stepping into the lioness's den. Oh, is something wrong? Izuku asked. Oh, nothing's wrong, but if you could come here to meet us at Barbie's house it would be fantastic, Z replied. We patiently await for you. Z hung up the call, leaving Izuku with a confused yet terrified expression. Man, that didn't sound so bad, Mirio said. It might be worse than you think, Mirio, Izuku replied, his voice crackling as though he was about to have a seizure. His mind started going through different things that could fall into urgent matters to discuss that would make them angry or worried. But the only thing that came to mind was their meeting with their possible future children. That meeting was stitched and melded into his memory like a mark on his life. He secretly hoped to have kids in the future, but now he was met with the possibility that not only was he going to marry and have kids, but he was going to marry all his girlfriends, and was going to have kids with all of them. He nearly fainted at the realization that he would be the father of such a big family. Despite his attempts to forget, he ended up sketching each of his kids in his hero analysis book. Deku had written down the names, codenames, costumes, quirks, and abilities that they possessed. He sketched and wrote all he had gathered from their short interactions, and even wrote who their mothers were. A part of him wanted to know more about them as people, but another part of him knew that they couldn't tell them much about their future. He had watched enough movies with the girls to know that tampering with the timeline only leads to dire consequences. Or as Barbara once put it, you never mess with the timeline. That's how you get composite Hitler Stalin, who is also a werewolf. I should go see what is going on. I'll call you if anything happens. Izuku said, waving goodbye to his senior. Just be sure to run if things get too bad, Mirio called back with a chuckle, waving at his friend. Izuku rushed to Barbie's home, wondering if that was the place where all the girls wanted to talk, or if it was the place where he would wish to make his own grave. He approached the front door before knocking at the door. He waited for the signs of anyone to come and open the door, but then he remembered that Barbie had asked the staff to take the day off. He opened the door, looking for any signs of the girls. Izuku, we're here by the pool, Diana called out, getting the green-haired boy's attention. Come quick, Greenie. Kara added. We have much to discuss, Z added. We're all here for you, mi amor, Jessica called. Don't leave us girls waiting, Barbara said. Please, it's embarrassing. Karen added. Oh please, we have it so we have to flaunt it. And you're missing it, Greenie, Galatea called out. Must you be so crass, Galatea? Barbie asked. We must have dignity as our discussion must be of utmost seriousness, Tatsu added. Izuku stiffened up at the sound of those words. He was a bit weirded out by the fact that they were waiting by the pool, but a part of him knew better than to question that decision. He picked up the pace in his step, making through the mansion until he came upon the resting area between the house and the pool. He was then met with all the amazing women in his life wearing white towel bathrobes that clung to their respective bodies like second layers of skin. His curiosity was stoked. I'm here. What did you girls want to talk about? Izuku asked. Please sit down, Izuku, Diana said, gesturing to the chair before the group. Izuku zipped to the chair, with speeds that would make the Flash look like the slowest man on Earth. He looked up at the girls, worrying that the discussion was not one that would end well for him. Izuku, we've called you here to discuss the matter of, Diana began only to blush at what she was about to say. Our children. Izuku's face went pale. Well you see Diana, the thing about time travel is, Izuku began, only for Kara to cut him off. Relax, Greenie. Babs already gave us the chat about Hitler Stalin werewolf time travel mess, Kara said, snorting at the idea. Although I thought that was the idea for a bad movie, Galatea commented. I'd totally stay with Greenie even if that thing was real. The point is we understand that it is a weird thing, but we want you to know that we want to be with you, Z said. What? Izuku asked. Kara and Galatea told us that you've made notes on our possible future kids, but we don't want to force you to do something you don't want to. Jessica explained. Yeah, just because we want kids with you doesn't mean we'll force you, Barbara added. We are in this together, Izuku, Karen said, speaking through her blushing face. Wait, what? I don't want to force you girls to marry me or have kids. Whatever choices we make, they'll be our own, Izuku said, trying to put on a brave face. That is what this discussion is about, Izuku. We wish to stay with you, Tatsu said. But keep in mind that we do not wish to make you do something that you do not want to. Not that having your children isn't an enticing idea, Barbie said, getting a glare from the other girls. But we shall ford that river when we come across it. Are you all right with that? Yes, I do not wish to pressure you, but I do want to be with you all, Izuku said, bowing his head in respect. I hope to make you all happy in any way I can. The girls all smiled at the declaration. If their smiles and blushes could talk, they would say how happy they were that they fell in love with such a good man. Their hearts were filled with a warm feeling that spread throughout their bodies, filling their stomachs with butterflies, and their imaginations were consumed with the images of their love and their dates. Their hands traveled to the edges of their bathrobes, gripping the edges like they were the last thing they would ever wear. They felt a bit naughty at the plan that they were about to enact. But if this be their made destiny, then so be it. The girls opened up their bathrobes and revealed what they were wearing underneath it all. Izuku, you are the best man any woman could ask for, Diana said in a saucy tone. You can look up now. Izuku slowly looked up to see what the girls wanted to show him. He was a bit curious when he heard their bathrobes hit the floor. He kept his eyes closed until he felt like it was safe to open them. He looked up to see something that made his eyes almost bulge out of his skull. The sight before him made him happy to be a man and his blood boil like the one of a wild animal amidst a group of females. Time skip. Zuko and Diana released each other from their kiss before gazing dreamily into each other. "You two look so adorable together," Kara said, getting the attention of the two lovers. "Can you blame them, sis? Greenie is adorable and a stud," Galatea replied. "I am more than happy with his performance. Our darling is a master," Z said. "Él es todo un toro," Jessica moaned. "He is quite the master at making us moan and orgasm," Barbara added with a great amount of praise. "He is amazing," Karen said in a dreamy tone. "That he is. And I can't wait for more from our king of the jungle." Barbie purred. "Master, we are ready for you whenever you are," Tatsu said with a blush on her face. Izuku looked down at Diana, who gave him a smile. "Shall we, my love?" Diana asked. "After you, Diana," Izuku said, lovingly kissing Diana once more on the lips. Epilogue. Izuku could feel the years piling on him, like a house of bricks that was being filed down due to use. He'd gotten out of bed quietly and made it to the bathroom, and was just awestruck with the image that faced him in the mirror. He looked at his scar-covered body and wondered how his body would have looked without them. His career had taken him across the world and the galaxy many times over, making his first dream feel like a faraway island. His body had gone through many changes that made him wonder if he was ever the same skinny kid back in Japan. Regardless, Izuku Midoriya was now being hit with the realization that he was far closer to his goal than he ever realized. Hearing happy moans, snapped Izuku out of his own thoughts of outer-world experience. He saw on his extremely large bed, his 9 wives stirring back into the world of the waking. They had spent the entire night in the throes of passion, celebrating their victory against their vicious foes and saving the city once more, just like when they were younger and had all the time in the world. He still couldn't believe that they had been together for over 10 years, and he could still fall in love seeing them sleeping. He gently moved towards them and pulled the sheets over their matured but still very attractive bodies that had been transformed into temples due to their heroic and everyday lifestyles. Just then a door opened up, catching his attention before a voice could be heard. "Daddy, can you come play with us?" a little Alexandra asked, holding up a small teddy bear dressed as All Might. Izuku smiled as his eldest daughter was then followed by Ro, Aya, Zetsu, Beatrice, Gabriella, Terry, Stuart, and Sakura, who were all eager to play with their parents that morning. "All right, but shh," Izuku instructed. "Don't wake up your moms. They're tired from dealing with Luther's Legion of Doom, so we'll have to play outside and be very quiet," he whispered as he walked out with his kids giggling. Yes, Izuku had married all 9 of his girlfriends and had had children with them as it had been expected. But that didn't mean that the journey to the altar was an easy one. 10 years ago, Deku and the Titans were facing off against Lex Luthor after he had revealed his plans to take over the city while pretending to be a hero. A large kryptonite meteor was headed towards the city, and Superman with Batman along with the Invisibros took off to stop it. This left the Titans to face off against the mastermind behind the arrival of the large meteor. "Give it up, you fools, I have the upper hand here," Luthor called out from inside his improved warsuit. "Once those super fools fail to save the day and I triumph, I'll be revered as the real hero, and none will ever trust your kind ever again," he added, firing a laser blast from the palm of his warsuit. "By putting the lives of everyone in the city at risk? That's not what heroes do," Deku snapped, dodging the blast with the aid of his danger sense and One for All. Power Girl and Supergirl flew past Deku, reeling back their fists to land a devastating blow on Lex. But as soon as their fists got close to the villain's face, they were met with a powerful force field. Their surprise only caught them off guard for a second, but it was all the time in the world Lex needed. As he swung his kryptonite blade, Power Girl and Supergirl were pulled back by Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. "We shall not let you hurt anyone just to satisfy your ego, Luthor," Wonder Woman stated as Zatanna and Green Lantern rushed to counter Luthor's warsuit. Zatanna's eyes glowed bright purple as she unleashed magical tendrils from her hands, wrapping them around the right arm of Luthor's suit. She pulled them back, holding his arm in place, chanting an unbreakable grip on the armor. As she was doing this, Green Lantern created a will construct of a mechanical claw. The Emerald Guardian did the same as her magical partner and caught the other arm of Luthor's armor, pinning him in place. "You're finished, Luthor," Green Lantern said, pulling on her construct as Zatanna did the same. "Give up now," she added as Luthor activated his thrusters to break free of their hold. "Are we really surprised that he doesn't want to come quietly?" Zatanna struggled to hold the robotic armor's arm. "We could use some backup." At Zatanna's insistence, Deku jumped in using a combination of One for All and Black Whip to pull down the warsuit. As his black tendrils wrapped around the armor's legs, crushing them, he pulled him down with One for All. Even if Luthor was still airborne, Deku was making quick work of pulling him down to earth with the aid of Zatanna and Green Lantern. His arms were being strained by the force he was meant to pull down, but still he kept smiling under his mouthguard. Just as Luthor was about to bring out his auxiliary blasters, a shadow obscured his vision. He looked up to see Wonder Woman, Cheetah and Katana coming down on him with their weapons at the ready. He was pushed down by the 3 Titans and the combined might of their other 3 teammates. His boosters were damaged, but his force field still held their attacks back. His force field was taking a lot of damage from the combined might of the 3 heroines on top of him. Their weapons might have been prehistoric to him, but they were cutting away at his defenses like a seasoned chef would cut away at a fish. He hated how the rabble of those under him often brought him low, be they using his own actions against him or literally pulling him down because of some freaky power they'd been given. "You're wasting my time," Luthor snapped, firing his left palm cannon. Breaking free from Green Lantern's hold, Luthor used this chance to knock back Wonder Woman, Cheetah, and Katana off of him with his free hand. He then fired another blast at Zatanna, hoping to take out the pesky magic user, but before his blast could strike her, Deku used his speed to pick Zatanna out of the way to safety. Deku looked up to see Luthor standing over him and Zatanna with an angry look. He could tell that they'd struck a nerve by beating down on his warsuit that Luthor had worked on to kill Superman. But even as Luthor aimed his palm blaster at him, Deku kept on looking at him defiantly. "You insignificant heroes think you're so clever, going to save the day with your fancy suits. But at the end of the day you accomplish nothing. I am going to change that and bring about a new order, one where those at the top deserve to be," Luthor declared as his weapon started powering up. "Don't kid yourself, Luthor. All you want is power because you can't accept that there are others better than you," Deku countered. "You think that only you deserve to be at the top because you can't stand that others are right and you're wrong. Heroes might not do much in your eyes, but every little bit helps. Even if at the end of the day we only make a few people smile, we still go forth to help people." Every word that Deku threw at Luthor made him angrier. He couldn't stand being lectured by those he claimed and believed to be inferior, especially someone that had been given such a power by a flick of fate. "And before you retort, Deku earned his power, he wasn't born with it," Zatanna stated, throwing Luthor for a loop. "Also, Dleifakruf tu Kriktros," she chanted her spell. Luthor's force field blew up, powering down to the point that it was no longer in use. He growled at the annoyance. "So what? I can reboot it before any of your heavy hitters can take me down," Luthor replied. "Then it's a good thing I snuck behind you with Bumblebee to infect your suit with a virus," Batgirl said, stepping from behind Luthor. Luthor barely had time to react before Batgirl struck a special circuited batarang into his armor. Bumblebee unleashed a powerful stinger blast through the batarang, giving the warsuit a deadly virus. Her electric shock attacked the rebooting systems, causing them to shut down for a full minute, suspending the weapons and the movement of the entire suit. "No," Luthor cried out. "Oh," Supergirl said. "Yeah," Powergirl added as they flew at top speed towards Luthor. Their fists collided against the large warsuit, cracking and breaking the warsuit to pieces. The two Kryptonians took their time turning it into scrap metal with only enough around Luthor to hold him in place. Now that felt gratifying, Supergirl said, high-fiving Powergirl. "You said it, sister," Powergirl added. "You fools, now the asteroid will collide and we will all die," Luthor snapped, trying to have the last laugh. The Titans turned to the incoming asteroid, hoping that their friends had one last ace up their sleeves. "You best take a good look as this is the magnum opus of your failure." Luthor began only for the asteroid to be blown up and out of course of the city. "Yo, Titans, good news. We saved the day. All together go bros," Hal Jordan Green Lantern said through the ring. "I can't believe I'd be this happy to hear his voice right now," Jessica Cruz Green Lantern commented. The day had been saved by the heroes and their work together. Present, Izuku led his small army of children to the living room where they were going to play. As his kids sat down on the couch, the world's #1 hero thought of what game he could play with them that wouldn't wake up his wives. He thought of charades, but that would have been too advanced. He also knew a board game would not be enough as the kids did tend to either get into fights over who was cheating and who was winning. His house had way too many holes from his kids having their powers activated or used without care. "So what would you guys like to play?" Izuku asked his kids. "Video games," Stuart and Terry both said at the same time. "I want to go out and play in the yard," Beatrice said, puffing her chest. "Me too," Sakura added. "Let's wrestle," Aya said, lifting up Beatrice over her head. "I want to play in the kitchen," Gabriella said, lifting her hand. "Can we watch a movie?" Zetsu asked. "I want to watch cartoons with Dad," Robert suggested. Alexandra tried to speak up, but things quickly evolved into chaos. The living room had just turned into a cartoon cloud of smoke before her eyes. She watched with shock at her dad trying to calm down all her siblings while keeping his voice down. Stuart and Terry were arguing about what video games they should play. Beatrice and Aya were fighting with Beatrice putting Aya in a headlock. Zetsu and Robert were discussing what the difference between movies and cartoons were, and which one was better. And Gabriella and Sakura shrugged as they joined in on the fighting, mostly because they were bored. Alexandra's eyes landed on her dad, who was muttering different pleas to his children to stop fighting and making so much noise. She remembered when this usually happened, her mother or all of them would do something. Then she remembered. She placed down her All Might teddy bear as green lightning coursed through her body. Her hands clapped together, causing a loud thunderclap to echo through the house. The house was silent once more, with Izuku and his other 8 kids looking at Alexandra with wide eyes. "All of you behave. We're the children of the world's best heroes. We cannot act like kids," Alexandra commanded with a voice that showed she was Diana's daughter and would have carried a lot more weight if she wasn't wearing pink pajamas and messy hair. Izuku smiled sheepishly as the rest of the children settled down. He was thankful that Alexandra's speech and clap didn't wake Diana and the others. His eldest daughter impressed him a lot sometimes. It reminded him a lot about the first time Diana and him introduced Alexandra to Hippolyta, 8 years ago. Izuku and Diana were traveling towards Themyscira with a newborn Alexandra wrapped in a red blanket. "Are you sure we should have left the others on their own, Diana?" Izuku asked as they approached the shores of the Amazon homeland. "Kara, Galatea and Barbie should be going into labor soon according to the doctor. And Z and the others aren't that far behind." "Calm down, my love. I know you worry about us and the children, but they are not alone," Diana said, calming Izuku's nerves with a gentle touch. "They have your mother, the Danvers, and our friends if something were to go wrong. And if things do go wrong, we will be there before they miss us." Izuku smiled. He could always count on Diana's words to calm him and help him think clearly. Ever since he found out the girls were pregnant, he'd have Diana taking it very well despite a few scares. She was like the one that was more in control when the hormones were making the others cranky or oversensitive or extremely horny. And now he was with her to do the thing that she was most scared about. Introducing Alexandra to Diana's mother, Hippolyta. The shores of Themyscira quickly came into view of the young parents. The sight of the Amazon army made them both very anxious and weak at the knees. Diana was particularly scared of what they had to do. "Maybe you were right, Izuku. We should turn back and head back to Metropolis," Diana suggested. "Maybe Alexandra can meet her grandmother at a later date. How does 18 to 21 years sound to you, my love?" However, before Izuku could answer her, the horn of the Amazon guard was blown. "I don't think we have much of a choice now," Izuku commented as they began to dock. Izuku and Diana waited for the Amazon guard to welcome them ashore. They watched with some worry as Hippolyta walked up to meet them with her serious face. "Daughter Izuku, welcome to Themyscira. It has been a long time," Hippolyta greeted with the shadow of a smile. "Mother, it is so nice to see you again." Diana bowed along with Izuku. "Not that neither of you are sights for sore eyes, but your letter was a bit dubious as to your visit. What brings you here, if I may ask?" Hippolyta asked. Diana froze. She didn't know what her mother would think about her marrying Izuku and having a daughter with him. She knew that she approved of him and her sisters in arms and wedding, but children were still an unknown variable. For all she knew, her mother would not acknowledge Alexandra as her own and would probably kill her husband for spawning Alexandra. Diana's mind went on a spiral of unknowns and what-ifs that nearly made her drop her daughter. But it seemed that all her nerves caught the attention of someone. Alexandra started crying, which alerted everyone in the vicinity. The guards pointed their spears and swords at the bundle in Diana's arms. Izuku jumped between his daughter and the deadly weapons while trying to soothe her. "It's okay, it's okay, it's okay," Izuku repeated. "Yes, everything is all right, Alexandra. Sorry, I did not mean to upset you," Diana apologized. "Diana, what is that in your arms?" Hippolyta asked. "If that is a child and you want us to take care of it, the answer is no. This is the ancestral home of proud warriors, not of some matrons that take care of lost children." "She's your granddaughter, not a lost child, mother," Diana snapped, giving her mother a fierce look. The whole island gasped at the revelation. Some of the Amazon soldiers even dropped their weapons. "Her name is Izuku Midoriya, and we came here to introduce her to you," Izuku explained. Hippolyta was silent as her eyes went wide from the shock. She looked at the bundle before her more diligently. She uncovered the red blanket surrounding the sobbing baby to see her. She saw the small tan-skinned baby with dark green hair and eyes. Hippolyta's head moved upwards to look at Izuku and then back to her daughter. She grabbed hold of Alexandra, much to the worry of both Izuku and Diana. "I have a granddaughter." Hippolyta screamed so loudly that the whole island heard her, lifting Alexandra high in the air for all to see. Look, she's got Diana's smile. Oh, she'll be one wonderful Amazon." "How old is she?" Hippolyta asked as the other Amazons gathered around, cooing at the baby. She's only 2 weeks old, Queen Hippolyta," Izuku sheepishly answered. "Oh, call me Hippolyta, sweetie." "Alexandra, like the mighty general and warrior Alexander the Great?" Hippolyta asked, getting a nod from Diana. "I can see it now, a mighty Amazon indeed." Alexandra started giggling as her grandmother tickled her. Diana let out a happy sigh of relief at her mother accepting Alexandra. She turned to see Izuku placing a hand on her shoulder for extra comfort. Just then she noticed her mom teaching Alexandra how to throw a punch, reminding her of when she did the same. However, Diana then noticed that some green sparks came out of Alexandra's tiny arm. "Izuku, is that?" Diana asked. "But it's too soon," Izuku commented. Hippolyta, maybe we should carry Alexandra for a little bit." "Oh, nonsense, Izuku, I am a trained warrior and queen. I can handle a small baby in my arms for 5 minutes," Hippolyta countered, getting close to Alexandra once more. However, as soon as Hippolyta's face was close to Alexandra, she thrusted her fist forward with one for all activated. Her fist connected with Hippolyta's cheek, landing a devastating punch on the Amazon queen. Everyone looked in silence as Hippolyta's head recoiled from the punch. "My granddaughter has the strength of Heracles," Hippolyta shouted, causing all the Amazons to cheer. Mother, are you alright? Diana asked as Izuku picked up Alexandra from Hippolyta's hands. We're so sorry, we didn't know that her quirk would manifest so early. Izuku apologized while Alexandra laughed. Oh, you two relax, I'm fine. Well, that is a lie. The whole left side of my face is screaming in pain. Hippolyta shrugged. But all that matters is that you two are happy with your child. You two now have a treasure that you must cherish with all your hearts. We will, Izuku said with pride. Yes, and we won't be alone. The others will give birth soon too, Diana said. Others? Izuku Midoriya, I knew you'd charm my daughter and become her companion, but how many women have you two shared your bed with? Hippolyta asked with shock. Present. After Alexandra's speech, all the children of the Midoriya household sat down on the couch quietly. Some of them pouted as they still wanted to play and not sit down quietly, waiting for their father to return. It was something of a usual occurrence within the household that the kids would often fight to see who was at the top, sometimes for fun, sometimes to prove they could lead, and most times just to see who would be the best hero leader for when they were older. But they always ended up being calmed down or separated by one of their mothers or their father, although sometimes they did let the kids burn out all their energy. This is boring, why is Dad taking so long? Beatrice whined. He's been gone for like 5 minutes, Terry countered. Actually 4 minutes and 25 seconds, 26, 27, Stuart counted. We get it, Stu, Robert said. I wish he'd at least let us put on some cartoons. Our moms are still asleep and Dad doesn't want us to wake them up just yet, Ro. So until then we're going to have to be patient, Alexandra explained. Daddy's girl, Beatrice blew a raspberry at Alexandra. Here we go again, Zetsu groaned. Oh yeah, violence? Aya cheered. What was that? Alexandra asked. I'm the eldest, so you have to do what I say, and when Dad leaves me in charge, that's double. You're only older than me by 2 weeks. I could totally be a better leader than you, Beatrice challenged. But you have trouble getting to the bathroom at night, B, Gabriella pointed out, earning a glare from Beatrice. Just let them have this, Gabriella. Mommy said that's how Mommy Diana and Mommy Barbie used to be like, Sakura pointed out. Sakura's comment stopped Alexandra and Beatrice from fighting. They looked at each other and wondered if it was true that their moms used to fight. Whenever they saw them together, they were the best of friends just like the other moms. Even when they were screaming with Dad, they seemed to be happy friends. It made no sense to them that their mothers could be such bitter rivals when they were younger. That's dumb, both Alexandra and Beatrice said at the same time, only to then scoff at each other. Didn't Dad have a friend like that? Robert asked. That comment made all the other siblings turn to face their brother. In all their short lives, they had never once seen their father have the same kind of rivalry like the one that Alexandra and Beatrice displayed. It baffled them to think their dad had such a person in his life. They had met their aunts and uncles and none of them seemed to have such a relationship. Uncle Hal was the only one that made a few remarks that got him tossed out of the house a few times. And Aunt Eri never once looked at Izuku as more than a big brother and all of the children as her nieces and nephews. So that left the Midoriya children with the question of who was the violent friend their brother had mentioned. Who are you talking about? I asked. Yeah, do you know their name? Terry asked, are they a villain or a hero? Maybe it's that dum-dum Shigaraki or Aunt Harley, Beatrice mentioned, earning confused looks from her siblings. What? She's the one that taught us how to put whoopee cushions made out of airbags when no one was looking. Mom was so angry about that shelter incident, Gabriella said in shame. And the magic show, Zetsu added, scratching his head in shame. And the fashion show, Beatrice added. The company lunch, Robert added, to which his sister snickered. That man flew so high and crushed the cake, Aya giggled. Just then, Izuku walked back into the living room with a book under his arm. He spotted his children giggling and talking. Hey, what's so funny? Izuku asked, causing the giggles to stop. All the kids turned to their father with curious looks in their eyes. Dad, did you ever have someone you were angry with and then became friends with? Was that? Alexandra asked. Like Mom and Mommy Barbie? Well, yeah, Izuku admitted, causing his kids to gasp in shock. Izuku was surrounded by his kids as they bombarded him with questions regarding the subject. He was asked who was the person he had the complicated relationship with. He was then asked why they were frenemies to begin with, and if it had anything to do with heroes and villains, or why he moved to Metropolis when he graduated high school. All right, settle down, Izuku said, trying to calm down his kids. I'll tell you all about it if you give me a chance. Izuku's children were silent as their father led them back to the couch where he sat between them. Izuku sighed as he'd hoped he wouldn't have to explain this subject until his children were much older. But he knew that their curiosity was something he'd have to contend with, as he'd already had to explain what he and his wives did from time to time at night. Okay, I guess in a way the topic has to do with all your questions, Izuku admitted. Yeah, I had a friend that was for the most part my rival but also someone I often admired. His name was Katsuki Bakugo, but you might have heard about him by his hero name, Dynamite. Izuku's children recognized the name almost immediately. They'd heard it and seen it on TV several times when news from Japan was being discussed. According to the news lady, Dynamite was Japan's #1 hero, and was seen by many as the apex of power and control. You know him, Dad? Robert asked. I did, And he wasn't always as great as they portray him on the news. We were childhood friends actually, Izuku explained. Whoa, really? I asked. Were you best friends? Terry asked. Or super-duper friends? Stuart asked. Izuku scratched his head, wondering how he could explain things to his children. It was a painful time in his life, but he had to face the fact that his kids would have to face similar treatment. So his best bet was to teach them and show them that the situation was a bit more complicated. Well, we started as friends, we both wanted to be heroes, we both even admired the same hero for the longest time. But then his quirk was awakened and I was diagnosed as quirkless, Izuku sighed. After that, things started to sour for our friendship. He got praised for having great power while I was looked down and seen as worthless. This made him think that he was above everyone else and started seeing anyone helping him as an insult to him. Izuku saw the confused faces on his children and understood that he needed to make it simple. Think like if you started to believe something that many know it isn't true or has yet to be proven. Izuku tried to explain. Like a lie? Sakura asked. Not necessarily a lie, but a way of thinking that is said enough times that you'd start to think. Like if I tell you kids, you can have as much ice cream as you want since you will get perfect scores on your college applications, Izuku explained. If that makes sense. Like when the Joker's goons constantly tell him he's a great boss and he believes it but is instead a bad one? Stuart asked. Yeah, something along those lines I guess? Izuku shrugged. So what happened with your friend Dad? Beatrice asked. Well, it got to a point that he started bullying me like everyone else did as part of him resented me. Izuku admitted. But for the longest time I thought he was my friend. Even when I knew all those things he said were meant to hurt me. Everyone saw him and saw a hero in the making. Someone that could start off as a sidekick or a young hero and go for the top like All Might, while I was lucky that a hero would even look my way. Eventually, he fell with the wrong crowd and I was chosen as the next heir of One for All. I trained tirelessly under All Might and Gran Torino to become worthy, before coming here to Metropolis to get some hero experience. And that was when I met Bakugo once more. Was he a hero like you and our moms? Robert asked. Not exactly. He was a very intense vigilante, often taking down his opponents with brutal force and lots of collateral. Deku remembered. He even joined Aunt Harley's old team for a little bit. We didn't clash often after that, but the last time we fought against each other, well, that was when everything came out about why he hated me so much. 11 years ago. Deku and Bakugo stood in front of each other in the middle of a deserted part of the city. It was the dead of night with the early hours of the morning slowly clawing away at the darkness, and the two rivals stared each other down. Their suits could not hide away the fire that burnt within each of them. Like two samurai warriors, neither of them said a word, letting the calmness of the air echo in the empty street. Get ready, Deku. We're settling this now once and for all, Bakugo growled, igniting his palms with his quirk. If that's what it takes to end this, so be it, Deku accepted, activating One for All. In the blink of an eye, Deku and Bakugo sped towards each other like two bullets on a collision course. They clashed, fist upon fist colliding against each other before jumping back. Bakugo shot himself forward with an explosion, spinning in the air while picking up speed. He spun against Deku, forcing the green hero back, right where the king explosion murder wanted. His palm slammed against the ground, igniting a powerful explosion. The blast from his attack created a large crater that blew Deku back. It's time to put you in your place, you damn nerd. Bakugo roared as the smoke covered him. Deku dug his heels before using his lightning speed, running around the blast to counter Bakugo's next movement. He reeled back his right fist as he passed through the smoke and the smell of cinders. His eyes stung as he spotted Bakugo. Unleashing a signature smashing punch at his rival, Deku was met with a secondary blast from Bakugo. With danger sense, Deku used the power of his punch to dodge the attack. It's not gonna be that easy, Bakugo yelled. I know your moves just as you know mine. Deku spun in the air, landing on top of a lamppost before jumping back into the fight. He called out Black Whip, wrapping it around Bakugo's wrists. With the power combination of Black Whip, Float and One for All, Deku pulled himself forward like a skilled acrobat towards his rival. But that doesn't mean I didn't come prepared, Deku called out, landing a double kick to Bakugo's chest. Deku bent his legs before backflipping on Bakugo's chest, landing a kick on his face. But Deku was then beaten back with another explosion that sent him flying back. The stinging of the explosion made him cough as his suit and flesh burnt from the blast. He rolled on the ground before regaining his footing. Come on, Deku, don't go easy on him now. Deku chastised himself as lightning crackled around his body. Bakugo had gotten up once more and started firing his long-range attack. He fired blast after blast of burning explosive rounds that would have made any firing squad look like children playing with water pistols. His fiery attacks were scorching the ground and burning the buildings as he tried to take down his rival. Deku zoomed past the fiery blasts, dodging them the best he could. He ducked his head as a shot burnt part of his mask. He didn't stop. Every step seemed to increase the power of his quirk, going from 10% to 40% like a speeding bullet. His movements were so fast that he left after images of himself as he got closer to where Bakugo stood. His arm was coated with red lines and green lightning as he landed a punch on his rival's face, sending him back. It's over, Bakugo. I am not the same kid from back then, Deku said, standing ready for the next move. I've found a way to make this quirk my own, and I'll use it to become a hero. Bakugo laughed at Deku's claim. It was a laugh filled with rage that turned to anger. Deku wasn't sure what to think of the laugh as Bakugo got back to his feet. You just can't stop lording that over me, can't you, Deku? Bakugo growled with blood coming from his mouth. Just like when we were kids, always chasing after me like a damn puppy, dogging my every step. Even when I made it clear that you weren't my equal, you kept at it. He twitched, as his hands burnt with explosives. Deku narrowed his eyes as Bakugo shot himself forward in a flash of light. The ninth air of One for All covered his body with his arms. But it wasn't enough. Bakugo slammed his hand forward, igniting the explosion. But not anymore. Bakugo screamed as Deku was blown back through one of the buildings. It doesn't matter if you have an arsenal of quirks at your disposal. I will prove once and for all that I'm going to be the #1 hero. Deku got out of the rubble and stared Bakugo dead in the eyes. He felt that there was more to his former childhood friend just claiming to be the next big hero, but he just needed the extra bit to learn what it was. Deku's body became engulfed in One for All once more. If you think so little of me, then why go to such lengths to convince me? Deku demanded, speeding out of the building, landing another punch on Bakugo's face. Deku spun on his heel, landing a roundhouse kick on Bakugo's side. Bakugo reeled in pain before pushing himself up with his explosions. He shot himself forward with a loud boom. He spun in a wheel motion like a madman. Bakugo was not going down again, not to Deku. His fiery wheel of destruction picked up speed in his rage. He slammed his hand forward, trying to blast his rival away once and for all. Deku caught the hand with his own, surprising his rival. Fujin! Deku called out, using both quirks in unison. Deku slammed Bakugo down on the street using the strength of One for All mixed with Fujin. His attack shattered the ground, but he was not done. Deku spun Bakugo before tossing him into the air. As Bakugo managed to get his body stable, the heir of One for All jumped high into the air to catch his friend for one final move. Why are you so determined to undermine me at every turn? I wasn't born with a quirk like you or everyone else. I had to work to get to where I am today. Deku called out as Bakugo fired himself towards him. Bakugo's eyes lit up in rage. He was not going to listen to Deku for another second. He was going to win. Deku and Bakugo were once more mere inches from each other, and neither one was going to back down. As Deku prepared his next attack, Bakugo's hands lit up with his biggest explosion yet. Time seemed to slow down as their attacks got closer to each other, while they never took their eyes off of their faces. The sound of a single drop of water coming down was heard. Deku and Bakugo's attacks landed on their respective targets. Deku's left arm had been struck by an explosion, which destroyed his suit's left side and his gauntlet. He gritted his teeth in pain but held it together as his attack still needed to do its thing. Deku's kick landed on Bakugo's side, breaking 2 of his ribs in the process. Deku pushed through the pain on his left side, calling upon his quirk's power to unleash it completely. He spun Bakugo with the force of his kick, sending him down to the ground with a mighty boom. Everything went silent as Deku floated down to where Bakugo had crashed. He panted as his body stung with each step he took. I don't know what I did to hurt you so much, but I looked up to you on how you weren't afraid of what you did, Deku admitted as Bakugo growled back to his feet. I'm sorry for whatever it might be worth. Bakugo couldn't stand it. He just exploded. Who the hell cares what you feel, you bastard? When everyone looked at me, they thought I had it made, but no matter what I did, you were always there trying to move past that wall. Bakugo growled. I only began to notice it back then. Through the tears with the sludge villain, you had the fire of a real hero. Bakugo, Deku said. It felt like hell, knowing that all I'd done meant nothing but hot air. That's why I came here. Bakugo held his side in pain. To prove that I could become a hero with my own power, but it seems that you've beat me to it as well. Don't worry, I'll leave for Japan as soon as I heal. Maybe I can start doing something right there. He added before leaving. Bakugo, no matter what people say, if you're willing to make the effort, you can become a hero, Deku said, catching Bakugo by surprise. Present. Izuku's children all looked at him with wide eyes as he explained the situation to them. It took some time, but he managed to help them understand what had happened to him and to Bakugo when they were growing up. Despite them only being 8 years old, they were quick to understand his predicament, which in turn made him feel some relief. So you're saying, people might look at us funny if we have superpowers? I asked. Well, not look funny, but sometimes people want to get on the good side of people that have particularly strong quirks or powers, Izuku explained. Just remember who your real friends are and who are trying to use you. Don't worry, Dad, anyone messes with us, I'll beat him up, Beatrice said, punching her palm. And then Alexandra can lecture them. Hey, why do you get to punch people and not Maya asked. Because you could crush their heads with one punch, Terry pointed out. Besides, we're technically quirkless, sis, Robert countered, stopping his sister from hurting Terry. If they say something, we'll just ignore it. But what if they pick on us? Stuart asked. Then you tell us and we tell them to stop it, Gabriella said. You can count on us to put them in their place if need be, Sakura added. Maybe we don't resort to violence as our first instinct, Gabriella countered. Well, sometimes you need to punch someone in the face to get the message across. Beatrice added. That's not to say they can't learn from their mistakes and be better, Alexandra said. I for one would try to forgive my enemies regardless of what they do. Beatrice then picked up Alexandra's teddy bear and ran away from her. Hey, get back here! Alexandra chased after Beatrice. Here we go again? Zetsu yawned as his older sisters ran around like Tom and Jerry. Izuku just watched as his kids chased or debated with each other. It was weird for him to have so many kids at the same time with such different personalities and desires. But he always tried to find a way to connect with all of them. But that didn't mean that he could always get them to quiet down. Izuku tried to get them to keep their voices down as it started to get quite loud. Kids, please, no shouting or screaming, Izuku pleaded until he got an idea. Hey kids, the first one to the kitchen decides what everyone has for breakfast. The offer calmed down all the children of the number one hero. They looked at their father before looking at each other in curiosity. Anything the winner wants? Was that? Alexandra asked. Yep, but you have to get there first, Izuku stated. And everyone has to eat it? Robert asked. Even all our moms? Aya added. Yeah, Izuku replied. But remember, no powers inside the house. All the kids looked at each other once more, but this look was filled with competitive spirit. In the blink of an eye, all the kids ran towards the kitchen in their attempt to get there first. They all sought to be first and have what they wanted for breakfast first. Izuku smiled and sighed as his kids made a mess of their short run to the kitchen. Who thought that having 9 kids right off the bat was a good idea? Izuku asked as several arms wrapped around his back. Oh, I don't know. You certainly weren't against the idea at the beginning, darling, Z whispered into his ear. If anything, you were very eager, Barbie added, kissing his cheek. We were barely into the honeymoon when we refused to leave the bed, Kara giggled. Yeah, Greenie, you were amazing, Galatea moaned at the memory. It was to be expected of our beloved to make us the happiest women alive, my sisters, Diana said, pulling up the picture of their wedding day. Izuku looked so handsome in his wedding tux, Karen mentioned with a smile. We looked so beautiful that day, Tatsu remembered. Looked? We still look like knockouts even after having kids, Barbara remarked. Supermodels and movie stars can eat their hearts out. It was one of the happiest days of our lives, Jessica swooned over the picture, one of many as of late. Hard to believe that it was 9 years ago, Diana mentioned. 9 years ago. Izuku was freaking out. He paced back and forth in utter terror as he felt the bow tie on his neck strangling him. He couldn't help but feel like he was doing this. Well, he knew he was doing it, since he'd been with the girls all those years and had gone through hell and back for them, and them for him. But still, Izuku felt like he was having a panic attack. I can't believe this is happening, Izuku muttered, pulling at his bow tie and collar to loosen them. I never thought I'd be here of all places. I mean, I should have known what I was in for when we started the relationship, but it feels like time has gone so fast. It is as though I had just met them yesterday. Inko looked at her son with a happy smile. It had been her great hope that he would find a fine young girl to marry one day. It made her realize that her son had grown up into a strapping young man with his future ahead of him, and would go on to do many great things. But the way he was pacing reminded her that this was her son first and foremost. It's all right, honey. Everyone gets jittery on the day of their wedding. Inko tried to calm her son. Mom, not everyone marries 9 people at once, Izuku muttered, trying to make his jitters clear. I mean, what if it doesn't work out and they all end up hating me? What if I can't always be there for them? What if they're sacrificing their future just to be with me? Izuku went on in a tangent of possibilities of failure and reasons not to go through with the wedding. But for every 3 bad things he could think of, there was one good thing. His mind worked like that sometimes. It was great in battle against villains and how to solve problems since he started training with the girls. But there was always 1 or 2 moments in which his analytical mind went into overdrive on all the disastrous outcomes that could happen. And on the happiest day of his life, Izuku's mind was being flooded with possible bad outcomes. Young Midoriya, the voice of Toshinori Yagi snapped Izuku from his despairing rambling. The ceremony is about to begin. Too late to back out now. Mr. Yagi, is it really that tea time? Izuku asked, looking at his watch. His mentor was right, there was no turning back now. Not to mention that if he did try to make a run for it, the girls would capture him and do horrible things to him. I guess there is no going back, Izuku muttered as his puppy dog eyes filled with courage. Let's go, because I am here, he said, walking towards the church's altar. The church was small, but it served its purpose as it had been chosen by the girls to hold the ceremony. Izuku's eyes landed on the 9 women that he'd fallen in love with. He saw them all wearing beautiful white dresses that enhanced their already natural beauty. He saw their flower bouquets being held like lit flames that symbolized their great individuality. His worries melted away as he stepped towards the altar. He didn't know what the future held for him, but he knew that this was not a mistake. Present. Crack! The sound of something breaking brought Izuku and his wives out of their trip down memory lane. Beatrice, Aya, Robert, what did you 3 break? Alexandra called out from the kitchen. Hey, who told you kids you could cook? Kara asked, rushing to the kitchen. No one gets near whatever broke, Barbie added. Hang on, baby girl, mommy is on her way, Galatea called out. We're coming, kids, Karen and Barbara added. Supermom squad forward. Mom! Stuart and Terry both groaned as Izuku and his wives went to the kitchen, leaving the picture of their wedding day behind. My baby, you're covered in flour, Z screamed in shock. Gabriela Midoriya, bajate de ella ahora mismo, señorita, Jessica called. Yes, Mom. Gabriela climbed down. Sakura, help me with the broom, Tatsu asked her daughter. At once, Mother, Sakura replied. You children made quite a mess, and for that no pancakes, Diana stated with authority. The children groaned in displeasure. But Mom, Alexandra argued. Kids, listen to your mothers, Izuku said. And, good morning, Mom, the children said, greeting their mothers for another day of being a family that went beyond plus ultra. And guys, this is the end. I hope you guys enjoyed well. Until next time, peace.